Good morning. This is Sanna Alaranta talking from home office in Itzish. And next to me you can see Rebecca Damot. So we are here today to give you an overview of environment and climate research part in the Horizon Europe program. So this is offered to you by Lux Innovation, which is the National Innovation Agency for Luxembourg. And we are also the national contact point for the Horizon Europe program, as we were for Horizon 2020. And this webinar is part of a series of webinars that we are doing this spring to cover the Horizon Europe program more or less entirely. So just to introduce myself first, so I'm Sanna and I'm national contact point for Luxembourg for Cluster 5, which is the in the focus today also because it covers climate, energy and mobility topics. And then I'm also covering the Cluster 2, which is focusing on culture, creativity and inclusive societies, so the more social sciences and humanities focused work program. And then we have Rebecca, who is the national contact point for Cluster 6, so covering food, agriculture, bioeconomy, natural resources, and also environment, which is then the focus of today's webinar. Then moving on towards, let me just quickly check the chat. Yes, so maybe before we go into the agenda, so a few housekeeping rules for this webinar. Please use the chat that you should see on the right side of your screen for any technical questions, or if you want to say hello to us, or if we ask for some feedback, quick feedback. But for questions on the content of the webinar, please use the questions part. And we have a Q&A reserved at the end of the webinar, so we would then take the questions up there if we have any. You can always, of course, contact us after the webinar via email, and we are happy to take a meeting with you or help you by email, whichever is more convenient for you. We will aim to have the webinar in maximum 1 hour, 60 minutes, probably less, depends. And the recording of the webinar will be put on our website, which is horizoneurope.lu. Maybe Rebecca can type the website address on the chat so you can get it. You will find also on the website, you should find the other recordings from the previous webinars, and I believe we are very much at the end of this webinar series, but there are still few coming up, so you can sign up. And what else? I think that's more or less the housekeeping rules. On the agenda, so we will first briefly go a little bit on the Horizon Europe background and what it is. Then moving on to climate change topics and environmental topics, and finally then Q&A. Good. Sorry. Before going into the content, however, so I believe many of you know us already, but just to remind you of our services and who we are. So we are Lux Innovation, we are the national contact point for Horizon Europe. So we are there to really to help you with your proposals and your ideas. Here on this slide, we've tried to sum up more or less the whole journey of the services that we can provide to you. So we are really there from the beginning, helping you to match your ideas to the suitable opportunities in the work programs. So you don't need to know in detail the work programs. We are happy to help you to identify the right parts for you. We can also help with the, as we're talking about collaborative projects most often, and definitely for the part that we are covering today, So we are there to help you to identify excellent partners for you, looking for complementarity and working with the best. We are also there for any technical support you need. So we organize this kind of information trainings, but we also can provide trainings. And we are happy to hear from you what your needs would be, whether that could be organized as a training, or you're welcome to contact us for any advice that you need, also for legal and financial issues. Then very important service that we offer is that before submitting the proposal, we are happy to do we try to be as critical as possible. So a proposal review that we can offer, we are happy to offer. Normally at least 2 weeks before the submission deadline. And before moving on, so you see that besides we are the national contact point, we are also the national representative for Luxembourg. So we sit in the program committees for the Horizon Europe program. The program committees, so our colleagues from other countries, member states and associated countries to the program, and the commission, where we discuss the work programs. So that means that you can also give us feedback on the work program drafts that we can then put forward. And we also monitor the implementation, the results of the program. I hope I didn't forget anything. So moving forward to understanding the program's background a bit. I will not spend too much time here, but just to give you an overview. So Horizon Europe, it is the new research and innovation funding program for the next 7 years. You know the predecessor, Horizon 2020, most likely. We're talking about an evolution, not a revolution of the program. We have a budget agreement from December for Horizon Europe, which is 95.5 billion euros for the 7 years. And here, firstly, an important point for you for the sake of the topic of this webinar, that 35, there is a target of 35% funding for climate change related actions in the program. And here on this slide, so you see the main aims of the program, and these are of course the main aims for the whole next 7 years programming period for the Horizon Europe. So the EU policy priorities, looking at on the right side of the slide, so we have the new EU growth strategy, which is the EU Green Deal that was announced over a year ago, end of 2019, and we have the digital shaping Europe's digital future, the digital strategy for Europe. So this so-called twin transition is very much transforming the economy, the society with the twin transition is also the main aim for the Horizon Europe program. Of course, we aim for competitiveness of the European industry and science, and now we talk about economy that works for people. Very important aspect or aim of the program on the more, let's say, international global impact is the United Nations SDGs, so Sustainable Development Goals, and you see a symbol of that on the left side of the screen. So keep that in mind as well for your proposals, that the UN SDGs have increased in importance for Horizon Europe, and that is one aim of the program. For the sake of the topic of today, so climate and environment, the Green Deal is, of course, very, very important for you to keep in mind. It is the new growth strategy for Europe, as already said. Before going a little bit more into detail of the Green Deal, I would also advise you to have a look at preceding communication or strategy or paper for Europe, which is the Clean Planet communication, a Clean Planet for All communication from 2018, which is kind of laying the basis for the European Green Deal, because it looks at ways for Europe to become climate neutral. It looks at the legislation, including the very recent one that we have, for instance, for energy and climate, that was finalized in 2018, I believe. It looks at the legislation and how far we can go with the current legislation and what is needed as more actions to be more ambitious and really to reach the 2050 climate targets. It looks at technology pathways, the scenarios that we can have towards the climate neutrality. And this paper, so the Clean Planet for All, also states that the transformation or the climate neutrality that we should reach, the cost and the speed of it is very much dependent on research and innovation and how well we progress there. So it puts the highlight there. So this is preceding the European Green Deal, and I advise you to have a look at that document as well. The European Green Deal, you can see on the slide, so this is the official European Commission slide on it. I'm sure you've seen it, so it has 8 policy pillars. And it's a good idea to have a look at them and have a look, depending on your project, your thematic, have a look at the different policy pillars and what is coming, what has already been proposed under them. What is very important is also the just transition, so leaving no one behind, thinking or concept of the Green Deal strategy. And you can see in many of the topics of environment and climate that the citizen or the user aspect, the social sciences and humanities aspect is very important. Moving forward, so the overall structure of Horizon Europe, which I'm sure you have seen already, and I will not spend too much time here, so you can check our other webinars. I'm sure you know the structure hasn't changed that much. So Pillar 2, Pillar 3 has changed places. For instance, some instruments have, like the Future Emerging Technologies, the FET, has moved from Pillar 1 to Pillar 3. It's now under European Innovation Council. But it looks very familiar, as you can see. And please check our webinars for the other parts of the program. Today, we are in the Pillar 2, Global Challenges and European Industrial Competitiveness. We are focusing on the Cluster 5, so the Climate, Energy and Mobility, the climate part, and the Cluster 6 for the environment part or the related part. Moving forward, so I will start now on the climate change opportunities and the part in Cluster 5, and I believe then Rebecca will take over for the Cluster 6, what is the climate-related part there. Here I wanted to also say that besides covering the Cluster 5 climate part, I will also briefly mention the missions that is a novelty in the Horizon Europe program. I'll quickly check the chat. Okay, good. Thanks, Rebecca, for covering the chat. Everything seems to be okay. So as mentioned, there is this, for Horizon Europe, you have the mainstreaming target of 35% for the climate action. Actually, we had similar target for Horizon 2020 as well, which to my understanding, except for the year 2020 was not reached for most of the Horizon 2020 years. For Horizon Europe, most likely there will be hopefully more monitoring of and measures how to be able to really reach the climate target. Here there is an overview of the different clusters. So this excludes the cluster 5 that I will cover, but giving you an idea where the climate-related actions in the other work programs can be found. So actually it's relevant in all of the other clusters, as you can see. Even, or maybe as I can mention the cluster 2, which is focusing on culture and society. So it looks at the digital and green transition, for instance, and what is the social dimension of it. So here, thinking about the just transition of the Green Deal strategy, for instance, and also the European cultural heritage, what is the impact of climate change and environmental changes on our cultural heritage. But just for you to keep in mind, and we are happy to help you to find your opportunities in the different work programs. As promised, I will cover the cluster 5 part on the climate area. So as said, cluster 5 covers climate, energy, and mobility. As you can remember, energy used to be in Horizon 2020, a standalone program, as well as mobility. Climate used to be together with environment in the Societal Challenge 5. The logic here is to put these 3 things together is that with the twin transition, these topics, areas are becoming more and more interlinked and should be dealt with in one big program. This is the snapshot or the overview of cluster 5, what you have inside. So you have the climate part, you have the energy part, and you have the mobility part. Besides that, you have a destination 2, which is covering more cross-sectoral solutions for the climate transition, so that touches upon mobility, energy, and climate as well. I'm sorry, our dog is barking outside. I hope you don't hear him. I hear him very well. Before I go into the climate part, I wanted to give you an overview of the destination 2, as it might be relevant for you. So this is the call areas that you have under the destination 2, so cross-sectoral solutions for the climate transition. We have batteries, we have the breakthrough technologies and climate solutions. We have the more social sciences, humanities focused part on citizen and stakeholder engagement for the climate transition. And we have communities and cities part, which for the moment being for the 2021 topics, we don't have that many because of a mission that is coming up and being prepared. I will say a few words on that. So we will see more topics under communities and cities for the 2022 update. And there would be topics such as, normally there would be topics such as nature-based solutions in cities, for instance, that might be relevant for you. To know more about that, you're welcome to contact me. Going to the destination 1, which focuses on really the climate science part of the work program. Here, so the expected overall impact, which comes from the strategic planning of the Horizon Europe program. So what you have to keep in mind for the whole part is that we are looking to transition to a climate neutral, resilient society. And because we still have knowledge gaps, we need more advanced climate science. And also this part is very much looking at the pathways, the scenarios to climate change, looking both the mitigation part and the adaptation part, and what are the as said, the SSH related, so the behavioral transformations that are needed for the transition. How to do that? So this is from the destination. What is mentioned, that's how to reach the impact. So we have 5 goal areas of the destination 1 that I will have on the next slide. So advancing knowledge and providing solutions in all of the areas. We are looking very much at the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and how we can contribute to that and contribute to the work of the European Environment Agency. One of the aims is also, as Europe is leading on climate change research, so we want to keep that leadership and strengthen the European research area on climate change. And finally, so how can we increase the transparency, the trustworthiness, and usability of the science from climate change, and how we can make that available for the policymakers, practitioners, and citizens. On this slide, so actually I will not go too much into details of the actual topics, but here an overview of the destination 1. So you have these 5 different core topic areas that all the topics will be touching upon. And you see in the little box, you see how many topics and how much funding we have. So we have 9 topics for 2021, mostly research and innovation actions, 2 CSAs. And we are expecting hopefully soon to adopt the work programs so that they could be launched. And the deadline for the 2021 call is already early September this year. Then for 2022, a little bit unusually for this work program, we have a 2-stage call for 3 research and innovation actions. You see the deadlines there. And then a 1-stage call with 5 research and innovation actions. So just a quick overview. Moving on, so for this destination 1, I tried to gather main tips what you should specifically keep in mind for the destination 1, so the climate sciences part. So of course, keep in mind the main goals, and not just the digital transition, the Green Deal, the twin transition, the Green Deal and digital transition, but also the global agreements that we have, the global ambitions that we have. So the Paris Climate Agreement is, of course, very much in the heart of this part. Keep in mind any relevant initiatives that might be relevant for your projects. So the previously mentioned IPCC, Global Carbon Project, Global Covenant of Mayors, the EIT Climate Kick, the Copernicus program, or any other relevant initiative. Look at synergies and interaction with other programs, partnerships and missions within the Horizon Europe and beyond Horizon Europe. So here are a few examples. I would like to mention the LIFE program that is definitely relevant for these topics. Then get to know the relevant EU strategies and legislation. The EU climate adaptation strategy that was, I think, published only last week. There is the EU biodiversity strategy. And one very relevant strategy or legislation that was that is mentioned in many of the topics is the LULUCF, which is the land use and land use change, including forestry. So looking more at what the carbon sink that land and forest and peatland and whatever it is offers and has. Always keep on mind to build on previous knowledge. We are building on Horizon 2020 on what has been done before. So all the technologies, knowledge, projects, as said, include SSH expertise and institutions in your consortium. This is very much mentioned in many topics. And keep in mind the user-oriented approach. So who is your target audience? Who are you developing this knowledge to? So think about the results. Before I let Rebecca to take a floor, very quickly, I try to be brief, but we cannot not mention the missions when talking about climate and environment. So missions is the new element of the program, so that we didn't have in Horizon 2020. I will have a few slides after this slide on what does it mean. But here, firstly, on this slide, you see a little bit how the pillar 2, the different clusters, and how the missions and also the EU partnerships are, how they stand in terms of relation towards each other. So the missions, which are these 5 missions that you see there, are inside the clusters, and the EU partnerships are partly inside, partly outside the pillar 2 clusters. And the budget within Pillar 2, up to 10% of the Pillar 2 budget during the first 3 years can go to the missions. That's the threshold. And up to 50% of the budget within Pillar 2 can go to EU partnerships, or that's the maximum. If this is a bit unclear and we're hurrying through, you're very much welcome to come back to us. I think we haven't really included the EU partnerships in this webinar, but if you need want more information, you can contact us. For the missions, in a nutshell, so what they are, I'm sure you've heard of them. So they are these putting the man on the moon missions that are bold, inspirational, and very relevant to the society. They have a clear frame, so they have a clear target. They should be measurable and time-bound. What is very important is a citizen aspect, citizen outreach, so really clearly demonstrating the impact of research and innovation can have for people. They are supposed to be interdisciplinary and even going beyond research and innovation actions, so in terms of legislation, for instance. Progress so far, so you can find online, the mission boards have handed over their reports to the Commission that can be found online. You can just Google it. Following the reports that kind of state what we should aim for, we are in this new preparatory phase for each mission. That should take up to 1 year maximum. So what that means is that we don't have the mission topics integrated yet in the cluster work programs, but we should hopefully see that as an amendment for the 2022 work program update. Almost all, so there are 5 different missions, and 4 of them have relevance for environment and climate. And here on this slide, I gathered the 4 of them. So you have, of course, adaptation to climate change, including societal transformation, which is clearly relevant for you. You have climate resilient and smart cities. You have healthy oceans, seas and coastal and inland waters, and soil health and food. So keep this in mind and look for the 2022 update. And if you need more information here as well, please contact us. I think I've taken more than my time, so I would like to give the floor to Rebecca.
Thank you, Sana. So as Sana introduced me, I'm Rebecca, and I'm NCP for the Cluster 6 on food, environment, natural solution, bioeconomy, agriculture. And so I will guide you through the second part of this webinar, more on the tackling environmental challenges part of Horizon Europe. This, you can find it mainly in the cluster 6. On the structure of the work program of cluster 6, it's organized around 7 destinations, but 4 of them are really relevant to today's topic. So the first destination is on the biodiversity and ecosystem services. The fourth one is on clean environment and zero pollution. The fifth, land, oceans, water for climate action. And the seventh is a bit transversal on the innovative governance, environmental observation, and digital solutions in support of the Green Deal. So there, on the 7th destination, you really clearly see the link between the Green Deal strategy and the digital strategy, as Sana has presented you earlier. I will start not in the order, but with the destination 5, because it bridges with the cluster 5 and the climate science aspect of Horizon Europe that Sana has just presented you, and with the more remediation aspect of the work program that is covered in the cluster 6. So the Horizon Europe is an impact-driven program. So the aim of all the project is to reach several goals, and one of the goals regarding climate change is that climate neutrality is achieved by reducing the GHG emissions, maintaining the natural carbon sinks, and enhancing the sequestration and storage of carbon in the ecosystems, while unfolding the potential of nature-based solution and developing the production of different systems on the land and the seas, on the rural and coastal area, and adapt to the climate change, mitigate, but also adapt to it. So in this destination on land, ocean, water for climate action, the Commission is mostly expecting to build a better understanding of enhancing the mitigation potential of the ecosystems and the sectors based on the sustainable management of natural resources, also to advance the understanding and the science to support the adaptation and resilience of natural and managed ecosystem. So you see the link, direct linked with the main goal of Horizon Europe there in the expectation of this destination. There will be also there are expectations to have better monitoring, assessment, and projection on the climate change impacts, on the mitigation and adaptation potential, so that there are better solutions to tackle the threats and to support the decision making, especially regarding the policies at European and global level. So this global level gives you a hint that there will be some international cooperation looked for in the different, or in some calls at least. The program will also look to foster the climate change mitigation in the primary sectors, including the reduction of the GHG emission, maintenance of natural carbon sinks, and enhancement of sequestration and storage carbon in the ecosystem. The nature-based solutions will be very important as well, and the management of scarce resources, in particular for soils and water, to mitigate the climate risk. What can we find? What kind of topic can we find regarding the land, oceans, water for climate actions? We are not disclosing, I guess you have seen that we are not disclosing the calls as they are not public yet, but we can bring you the knowledge of the main thematics that you will find. So for this destination in the cluster 6, you will find topics on the thematic of the water resource availability, on the polar processes that are responsible for climate change. There will be thematic on pilot farms for climate smart farming, agroecological and agroforestry approaches, also topics on the evolution of the livestock farming system, and also on enhancing the knowledge on EU forests. So you see, it's very broad, a very broad approach for climate change mitigation. There will be international cooperation. We are aware of topics for international cooperation with China, particularly on the resilience of forests, and also with the International Research Consortium on the soil carbon. Quickly on the topics for 2021, there will be 9 topics for the Destination 5, and 7 of them are research innovation action. And the deadlines should be around beginning of September. So if you are already thinking of a project, just do not hesitate to contact us. We can discuss them, find the more relevant topic for you, so you can have this project come to fruition. And then the link with climate change is the Destination 5, so the land water use. And in Cluster 6, you have also a lot of topics and expectation towards the climate change mitigation based on the environmental services. So regarding the impacts that the Commission wants the projects to contribute to, you have 2 main impacts to keep in mind. And first is that the biodiversity is back on the path to recovery. The ecosystem services are preserved and sustainably restored on the land, inland water, at sea, through knowledge and innovation. And also that sustainable and circular management of use of natural resources and the prevention and removal of pollution are mainstreamed, so that they become part of our life, and that the potential of the bioeconomy is unlocked, that there is competitiveness, and also that the soil is healthy, the air healthy as well, and that the water from the inland water and the marine are healthy again. So regarding the biodiversity and the ecosystem services, the Commission is expecting to halt the biodiversity decline, and this is clearly linked to the biodiversity strategy. So working on a project on biodiversity and ecosystem services, you will have to link to the Green Deal, but more specifically to the biodiversity strategy. So as Sana has nicely said earlier, have a look at these different policies and work with them and on them. So the Commission is expecting that the direct drivers and interrelation regarding the biodiversity are understood, addressed through the production, integration, and use of open data, knowledge, education, and training, innovative technologies, solutions, and control measures, and collaboration with European and international initiatives. There will be also expectation on the biodiversity and natural capital as integrated into the public and business decision making, and that the science base is provided for the planning, and that there are more and more protected areas. The Commission is also expecting that the deployment of nature-based solution around Europe, and finally that the risk associated with the microbiome and the biodiversity are understood. What kind? Still some expectation. Sorry, it's a lot of expectation, as it's quite the basis of our life. So regarding biodiversity and ecosystem services, we will also, well, the Commission is also expecting to understand and to have new practices in the agricultural and forestry for the biodiversity. So it's very a broad approach. So regarding the agriculture, that we have a wider range of crops and breeds, and that the genetic base of the agricultural products that are grown in Europe is broadened, so that there are more genetic diversity in what is put in the fields. Also, the role of society is very important regarding this just transition, and that no one is left behind, so that the projects will also look into having some transformative changes in the society for the biodiversity and ecosystem understanding, and that the biodiversity research is interconnected across Europe. So the relations and interconnection will be also very important, not only internationally, but at European level. Now, on the thematic for 2021. So you have seen there's a huge range of expectation from the Commission, and you can see it in the number of topics. We are expecting 22 topics for 2021, 7 of them research, innovation, action. So there will be a topic on the understanding of the biodiversity decline, and with global initiatives and international cooperation in mind, such as with the Earth Biogenome Project, the International Barcode of Life. There will be also topics on the value and restoring the biodiversity and the ecosystem services. So there will be nature-based solutions, evidence-based policy and decision-making topics, freshwater ecosystem restoration. Also, COVID has come the way, especially during last year and the building up of this work program. So there will be also thematic covering the links between the biodiversity, the ecosystem services, pandemics. You will also find some topics on the spatial planning that play a big role as well in the biodiversity and ecosystem understanding. On the primary production as well. So as said, especially agriculture, forestry, topics on breeding, root-based traits, organic crops, forest genetics. On the more social and citizen aspects, enabling the change on biodiversity, but also more regarding the different aspects of biodiversity. So you will have topics on the biomass, the water, food, transport, the climate and health nexus, and still keeping in mind this policy and decision making, the importance of informing and changing the way that decisions are taken. And finally, so the more international aspect on, there will be topics on the support to the EPBES and IPCC. Then the environment services are also highly linked with the clean environment and zero pollution, and there we can make the link to the zero pollution strategy of the Commission that is part of the Green Deal initiative. But with the work program and Horizon Europe in general, so the Commission is expecting that the project will advance the understanding of the diffuse and point sources of water pollution, so that the quality of the water is better and the management is also ameliorated. The importance also, if we talk about pollution, of the balance of nitrogen and phosphorus flows, under the safe ecological boundaries of the EU at regional and local scale. So different scales and different approaches within the projects. And so local, regional, and then more European approach. And also the importance of contributing to restoring the ecosystems. We have mentioned it. So the Commission expects that the seas are cleaner and polluted. So there will be topics in the different work programs, but also there is one specific mission on this aspect. And then there will also there's also an expectation that the circular bio-based systems are working on reversing the climate change, restoring the biodiversity, protecting the air, the water, the soil quality, and the importance also the development of the biotechnology and the bio-based solution. So regarding the topics, 10 topics for 2021, 6 research innovation action on different thematics. So you will have thematics such as halting emissions of pollutants to soil and water, protecting the drinking water and managing the urban water pollution, topics on addressing pollution on seas and oceans, linked with the mission at some point, and also on increasing the environmental performance and sustainability of the processes and products. So there we are talking about biological feedstock, industrial processes in bio-based sectors, especially targeted here. You have the construction, woodworking, textile, pulp and paper, and biochemicals. There are also the thematic of new genomic techniques, especially with regards to the agriculture, the use of alternative fertilizing products, the use and understanding of these alternative fertilizing products, and also very important, the bioremediation and revitalization strategies for the soil mainly. So this is a broad overview of the different thematics and impacts and objectives of the Commission regarding the environmental services and the climate change mitigation within Cluster 6. So you see it's very broad. So if you have any question or if you have any project in mind, do not hesitate to reach to me so we can discuss it and see what topic correspond to you the most. There are around 100 topics, a bit more in the Cluster 6. So for now, so you see, it's really hard also to disclose them all in this kind of webinars. So briefly on what to do now. So the indicative deadlines for Cluster 6 and Cluster 5 for 2021 is September. So then we are now mid-March, and until September you can think that you have some time, but we really do advise you to start early, working on a project, maybe on a proposal. So starting early means being aware, doing some research, but most important to contact us to discuss the ideas and the opportunities. And once you have a more developed idea of what you want to do and which topic you would like to apply, then to start mobilizing your network, even a bit before starting mobilizing your network and discussing with your friends or previous co-workers if they want to go for topics, if you could build on a project together, because we are talking about collaborative projects. And we also advise you to participate in networking activities. The big one that will happen is 23rd and 24th of June, and these are the research innovation days. And for others, we will disclose them, we will share them when we have the dates. It's still a bit uncertain. Horizon Europe offers also the opportunity for you to be an expert and an expert for European Research Innovation Program. So an expert, the role is to evaluate the proposals and monitor the actions, the grant agreement, the public procurement contract. So there you are not working on a project, but you are the person evaluating the project. So you make use of your knowledge for the entire Europe and Research Innovation Program. So the expert, in addition to evaluating and monitoring, they advise also on the preparation, implementation, and evaluation of the program and of the design of the policy. So you are very close to the heart of the work of Horizon Europe and of the Commission. And of course, this is not something you do for free. It's some kind of a job. If you want more information, you can contact us, but you can also find more on the funding and tender portal. And now, if you have questions, you can ask them in the Q&A, which I will open, or in the chat, but the Q&A is better, and we will answer them.
Rebecca, I think so. I see nothing in the questions.
Yeah.
So please do use for the participants. Please use the questions part. But I see in the chat, I see a question on the biodiversity. So the question goes, I see biodiversity everywhere, but was there no mention of ecosystem processes?
Yes, you will find the ecosystem processes as part of the, well, you will find them in the cluster 6. And as a complement to the biodiversity. So the ecosystem processes you have, as said, you have on the soil, regarding, for instance, the agriculture, more related to the agriculture, you have on the water, so inland and ocean water. So you have the ecosystem services. I may have not disclosed them enough, but if you have in mind a specific service, ecosystem service you would like to discuss, feel free to contact me.
Yes. Good. I have a question. So in the chat box,
Okay.
if the mobility is within your cluster also, so this is cluster 5 related. Yes, indeed. So it combines, besides the climate science part, you have the energy and the mobility part, and all of this is put together in one work program. I'm covering it as well, so you can contact me for the mobility related questions as well. So I'm the national contact point for that as well. We didn't cover it here because here the focus was on the climate and environment, and that's what we have tried to do with the webinars. So not necessarily covering one cluster, but rather looking at thematics and here helping you to see that actually if you're interested in the biodiversity or ecosystems or climate science, so you should broaden your view and not just look at cluster 5 or cluster 6. And so that's why we've done it more thematically. Then I see is there a question? Okay, so I see several questions here.
So maybe we can start with the question from Rameses. How long does it take to receive the outcome of the application? Until 2022. Yes. So you will. So the deadline for the call is early September. Then you have around 5 months until you have the result of your application, and then you have around 3 months to build and sign the grant agreement with the consortium and the Commission. So it's approximately 8 months after the deadline that you will receive, that the project will start, and that that the project will start. So the outcome is 5 months, but the start of the project is with 8 months after the start, the deadline. Sorry.
Yes. Thank you, Rebecca. Then there is a question on the new proposal template, which hasn't been published yet, to my knowledge. Yes, besides the reduction to 45 pages, where do you see the main challenges for us to adapt? Here, I guess mostly important, I guess, is to look at the impact part. But I would like to say here that we are planning on organizing, so after the webinar series that we are doing now, that we want to organize something focused on the new proposal template, so a training related to the proposal template, looking on what are the main changes, and yes, exactly what would be the main challenges to adapt. And we can come back to that later on. Then there is a question on the area of healthy oceans and seas, pollution detection and reduction. So here I mentioned the mission, and I mentioned the partnerships. We didn't go too much into detail of the partnerships. There is I think 2 water-related partnerships, the Water for All, and then one focusing on more the oceans and seas. Here, probably we can come back to that later on, unless Rebecca, I think this thematic is under cluster 6, if you have something to answer there, or we come back to it later.
Yes, so the topics we have now is more about understanding the pollution and reducing it. So it's on pollution detection and reduction. Yeah, if you want to have a look at them, know a bit more about them, drop me an email and we can have a chat about them.
Then there is a question on Tier L, so technology readiness levels. Which levels are mainly addressed under these calls, I guess. It doesn't mention, the question doesn't mention specifically which part. I can say for the climate in cluster 5, so it's mainly, as you saw, it's research and innovation actions. So it's lower TRL levels, more research focused. And I guess for Rebecca, maybe you have more innovation actions as well.
Yes, innovation action, you will go until TRL 8 maximum, and then the TRL will depend on the project, on the subject. So it's a bit difficult to address the question in a general manner because it's really topic related. Yeah, so you will have, so research innovation action starts from quite the beginning, and some innovation action build up and with the aim of demonstrating already. So it's quite advanced with regard the TRL already.
Then there is a question from Kamil Gabasov, but I would ask you to come back to us by email because you're talking about your eligibility to participate in Horizon Europe grants. So I think it's better to discuss bilaterally on that, I would say.
But briefly, startups are eligible
yes.
To Horizon Europe, if that's some kind of answer.
General question, yeah. Okay, I think I don't see any more questions coming in.
Me neither. I have put in the chat our emails. If you want to reach us, you can see them here as well. The last word, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter on horizoneurope.lu. We communicate about the events mostly, and every 3 months we send you some information about interesting articles and what's going on at European level.
And I think we reached 60 minutes.
Yeah, we're almost there. So thank you for joining us, staying with us, and your interest. And if you have any questions, contact us. Otherwise, wishing you a very nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time.